100 ways to connect with 100 people in 100 days. Yeah, that's right. You're going to learn more next on City Corner. I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome to City Corner. My guest today is a speaker, social entrepreneur, and author who is on a mission to encourage and teach people to create, curate, and cultivate friendships. She's a self-proclaimed friendaholic, and she's even written a book about it called Hey Friends, 100 Ways to Connect with 100 People in 100 Days. It's a pleasure to introduce Keisha Mabry as our guest today on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I know you're a busy person, so I appreciate your time in being here.
Oh, absolutely. Never too busy for the city.
No, this is great. You know, I was reminded when we were putting together everything for this show, there's a quote by Maya Angelou, and it's, "A friend may be waiting behind a stranger's face."
So
and
true.
It's so true, and it made me think of everything that you're doing. Let's first talk about this your book and this whole concept of meeting 100 people and connecting with 100 people in 100 days.
Let's do it, friend.
Hey, friend. So yeah, start me off. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I'm not from St. Louis. I feel like I am at this point, though. I've been here 8 years, 9 years now, and when I moved here, I realized if I wanted to build community, that I was going to have to do something proactive to do it. And it didn't hit me originally, but when I kept going to these networking events and people kept asking me about my high school, I was just like, I did not go to high school here, friends. So trying to think of other ways to connect was really a struggle in the beginning. And so I got this idea of, I moved here with Teach for America, so I was teaching science at the time, and I got this idea, what if I was to do like a real life science experiment on myself? And so I decided to meet 100 people in 100 days. So thinking through like a hypothesis and like all these things, knowing that if I went through this experiment, I would be better connected, or that was my hypothesis. And so I did it, and I met people randomly. So at first it wasn't any strategy behind it. It was really based on how many people can I meet just in like my normal way of living. And through research, I learned that we pass about 60 to 70 people a day. So if you think about it, if you're like me, you never like what you cook, even if you meal prep. So you're seeing people if you go get food. If you love coffee, you're seeing people if you go get coffee. If you need to pump gas, you're seeing people. Just again, like your normal routine of things. So 100 days later, I had met all these amazing people, and then I did exactly what I thought the experiment would do, and I was better connected, and I had a sense of community here, which I didn't have prior to.
So when did you get to the stage of, like, after that sort of experiment of saying, I want to share this with people, writing a book and having this whole brand around it? I mean, I've been on your website. It's beautiful. It's a lovely website. It's really, really great. You've got this brand about connecting with 100 people, making friends. So when did you think about making it into a book?
I didn't. So I did. Let me just be honest.
Thousands of book sales later, I did it.
I did. So I never thought Hey Friend would be a brand. Fast forward to before I moved to St. Louis, Hey Friend was just a thing that people knew me for saying, and they knew me for saying it because I was going to all these networking events. So I graduated from grad school, and I did what all my professors and mentors told me to do, and I went to these networking events, and I hated them. Like, people were talking about what they did for a living. I was zoning out. People, they were so boring, and I had all these business cards, and like, business cards were everywhere. They were in my car, they were in my pockets, they were in my coats, they were in my purse, they were like backpack everywhere. Like I was washing them because I forgot they were in, my jeans. And I said, there has to be a better way to connect, but people tell me this is the way you're supposed to do it. But in that process, I was forgetting people's names, and I was just like, what can I say so they know I know them, but they don't know I don't know their name? And one day I could not think of this person's name, and out of my mouth just came, Hey Friend. So Hey Friend became like a thing when I was still living in Kentucky. And so I would meet people, and they'd be like, hey friend, hey friend, hey friend. So when I moved here and I did this experiment, the same thing kind of happened. So my first 100 people, I was forgetting their names. And so I just started saying, hey, friend again. So then people in St. Louis started knowing me for Hey Friend. And it was never a brand. It really was like authentically who I was and the things that I said. And now that it is a brand, and now that I study branding, I realize a brand is just an extension of who you are, or it should be when it's in its most authentic, raw state. So that's really how it evolved. So when people started calling me Hey Friend or knowing me as that, they said it was a brand. And so when other people said it was a brand, I'm like, maybe I should listen to what they're saying. You know, we always say they say.
Yeah.
In this instance, I listened to they, and my mom was just like, you should actually really think about what this could be. And so this was maybe 3 years ago. And so I started thinking, like, what could it be? And I did another social science experiment on myself, where for 30 days I really just studied how people build brands, how they evolve, and then based on my own skill set, what that could be. And I did a lot of assessments on myself, and then started asking around, meeting. I met 100 more people, more specifically to if I built a brand, like could it be, or if I launched a business, what could it be? And then everyone was like, you're really good with connecting, like you need to do something in that space. And so fast forward to now, that's how it kind of evolved.
Right, and so you're in development of a Hey Friend platform.
Exactly. And the platform is interesting. Speaking of evolving, the other thing about brands that I'm learning is you start out to build something, whether it's a brand, a business, or whatever, and you think it's supposed to be one way. But when you start to put it into the marketplace, you learn that your target market actually wants it to be another way, or you uncover another problem under this rock and like another problem around this corner, and then you start to pivot. And so in the beginning, when I launched Hey Friend, I thought it would be speaking engagements, book sales, and merchandise, and coaching and consulting. But then I learned about myself that I cannot coach and consult because I still have a full-time job. And so I pivoted and then just focused on speaking and book sales and not even really merchandise. Well, now that I'm about to offboard from my full-time role, I'm learning 2 years in, there's other problems that I can solve with this platform. So should the platform be around connecting, or should it be around other things that I've learned through speaking? And through speaking as a person of color, as a woman of color, I learned that there's a lot of tables that we're not at. Like even like 2 years into speaking, I've done definitely over 100 speaking engagements at this point. I am usually the only woman of color as a keynote. Or I'm the only woman, or I'm the only person of color as a keynote. And so now my tentacles are like, well, where's the solution to that problem? So the platform that I'm thinking now is going to pivot into something that supports women and getting more women of color into speaking.
That's fantastic. And speaking of speaking, you've done a TED Talk.
Yes.
And we have a clip of that I want people to see, because I think it sort of speaks to, sort of as you alluded to, the origins of before all of this brand started, that starting point. So we're going to take a look at that. Here it is, a TED Talk with Keisha Mabry.
I had a decision to make. I could continue to live in quarter life strife, or I could figure out this thing called life. I chose the latter. I chose to step out of my millennial comfort zone and meet 100 people in 100 days the good old-fashioned way. No technology, no text, just good old face-to-face connectedness. I wanted to hear their stories. I wanted to learn from their experiences, and I wanted to follow their paths to love, leadership, success, and happiness. And so, on October 2nd, my 100 people in 100 days commenced. I started my journey by contacting my local Chamber of Commerce. I figured with a reach of 15 counties and 1.4 million.
All right, and I know that I've watched the full 15 minutes, and what I love about it, just your honesty in it, and how you got to where you are, is you talk about this quarter-life crisis.
Oh my gosh.
Which I thought is so funny, but it's a really good point, which is, and people have talked about this, which is after college, in your case after your MBA, after graduate school, there is this part of like, well, what exactly do I do unless somebody's pushing you in a specific channel?
True.
And so you're kind of saying that this whole quest for love and leadership and success and happiness really started at that point and led you to reach out to make friends.
Totally. And I think for me, oftentimes people see everything that's happening right now and they're like, oh my gosh, you're like an overnight success. I'm like, no, friends, I was an over life success. Like, I have been like doing things in life for years that have gotten me to this point. And I think the TED Talk really speaks about that. I feel like I go through a quarter life crisis every 5 years. Like, let's just be honest. Every 5 years, I'm just like, what am I doing with my life? And like one of the activities that I mentioned in the TED Talk is like a why be do, which is like really you thinking through why do you want to exist, or how do you want to exist in this space? Like, what is your why for existing? How do you want to be, and how do you want to show up to exist in the space? And then like, what do you want to do as a result of that? And so every year I kind of go through like a strategic planning process with myself where I'm thinking through, okay, Keisha, like what is your why be do for this year? And what does that look like for you? Which kind of goes back to what we talked about before the clip, is like the power of the pivot. Like at first I thought like my why be do was centered around me building relationships and making sure people understood how to connect authentically, and that's just one part of the piece. But as I'm going down that journey and speaking about it, I realized the other part of the piece is there needs to be more Black and brown women into speaking. And there needs to be more supports for Black and brown women as it relates to brand building and business building, especially in the Midwest. Like anytime I am getting educated on any of those things, I'm hopping on a plane to do it. So I'm hopping on a plane to go to New York to take a class, or I'm hopping on a plane to go to DC or LA, versus being able to hop in my car and drive to get those things right now. So I'm still on that pivot path, really trying to figure out, like, again, what is my why be do and how do I want to show up fully? Because I think one thing that we miss is shapes are 3D and so are we. So it's okay for you to have multi-dimensions about yourself. And sometimes it's hard when you feel like that multi-potentialite to live into all of those dimensions. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. So it's a journey, and I'm on it, and I just encourage other people to embrace the journey because it will continue to pivot and change as you go throughout it.
And I think that's great that you're recognizing yourself in that moment. I mean, we've got so much to talk about. I want to talk about mastHERclass.
Yes,
that's part of your platform, and I want us to talk about some of the tips that you talk about in your book. But we have to take a break, so for those of you at home, we've got some information there for you on the screen to learn more about Keisha. She's got a fabulous website. It's KeishaMabry.com right there. You claimed that domain name early. But you can sign up for her 2020 Masterclass now. Her other one already sold out, correct, that you just did. So please check her out at KeishaMabry.com. But don't go anywhere. We're going to have more. Stay with us. We're just taking a break right now. We'll be right back. I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome back to City Corner. My guest today is Keisha Mabry. She's a speaker, social entrepreneur, and author of Hey Friend, 100 Ways to Connect with 100 People in 100 Days. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you. You say it so well. I love it.
No, you've done an excellent job as branding. We keep talking about this, but no, you did a very natural, way of making this work and making it click. When we left off in the first segment, you mentioned your mastHERclass, and I wanted to kind of pick back up on that. Because I think what you're saying is sort of like the past couple of years you've become known for Hey Friend. It's been branded. You're further developing this platform, but it's also, as you, using your words, pivoted a bit to start something called mastHERclass. So tell me more about that.
So with Hey Friend, again, the first few years were centered around speaking and getting the word out there about connecting, because I think relationships are the root of everything. Everything that I've done in my life has been because of a relationship that I had, and not just an inauthentic one, but a very authentic one, like someone who I have broken bread with, in a sense, who I have their best interests at heart and they have my best interests at heart. And so it really has propelled my career for some people, what some people would say very quickly, in a 2-year time span. But in propelling, again, I've learned that through speaking, I'm usually the only one at the table. And so I had to ask myself, do I just continue to solve problems for the connection piece and teach people how to build authentic relationships? Or do I honor all of me and start to solve problems for the speaker piece too, because I show up as a speaker as well? And so I decided, it was so quickly, friend, January 9th was when I decided to do Masterclass.
Huh.
A lot of people feel like I've been planning it forever. No, friends, I planned it for a little under 8 weeks. So January 9th, I was in New York doing a speaking engagement. And when I got off the stage, there were so many people in New York like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. Not to toot my own horn, but I was pretty good. And they were like, where do you live? Like, do you live in New York? And I'm like, no, I live in St. Louis. And like, they could not believe that I lived in the Midwest. And I'm just like, oh, that's so not good. Like, there is value in the Midwest. There are people there that are making things happen. There are content creators, brand strategists, people building businesses that look like me that need resources. So it just got my wheels to thinking. So we all went to dinner, and then I just started like doing some probing questions like, hey, if I developed a space in St. Louis, would you all come? Like, would you come and speak about different things centered around branding and business building? And they were like, St. Louis? I'm just like, yes, St. Louis, in the Midwest. And they were like, let's think about it. So when I got on the plane and came back to St. Louis, I spent my whole 2-hour plane ride thinking through what the structure could look like.
Okay.
And so after typing for like 2 hours straight with my fingers, Masterclass just popped into my head. And I'm just like, this makes so much sense. It's like Masterclass, like it's gonna focus on women because I'm a woman. And I notice in this space that I don't oftentimes have a lot of resources or people that look like me in the brand building and speaking space. And then I just started thinking through when I started 2 years ago, what were some of the issues that I was experiencing that I needed support with or that I wanted to have more support with. And so that's how I came up with the list of topics, and I ended up with a list of 12. And so then I'm just like, okay, well, when is this thing happening? And I'm like, my birthday's in March, so is International Women's Day, so it has to happen in March. And I'm just like, this is impossible. Like, I got off the plane thinking, this is impossible, Keisha. Like, you're gonna plan a conference with 12 speakers in 7 weeks. Like,
and you got photos done and everything. You were able to put it together.
oh my gosh. So,
And it sold out, right?
it sold out. And so it happened, and it happened because of those relationships. Like, that's what made it happen, but it was still necessary. And through that experience, I realized it's okay to honor all of you. So yeah, that's how we got Masterclass. And now we're already booking for 2020. So I already have 3 speakers confirmed. I'm confirming the other 9 as we speak. And then we already have 50 people who have saved their seats. So you can save your seat for $25 on Eventbrite. And then more information about the full slate will come out in September.
And so what are people attending your master class? What are they going to hear? What are they going to walk away with?
Yeah, good question. I'm just assuming all of you all knew. So Masterclass is a full day of master classes taught by 12 women. Each class is 75 minutes long, and it centers around tangible takeaways that relate to some topic in branding and business building. So for 2019, the topics were, and I'm not gonna list all of them, but some of them, getting into speaking. So I led a 75-minute class on if you wanna get into speaking, these are the things that you should do. And the difference with Masterclass is Masterclass focuses on tangible takeaways versus inspiration. I've been to so many conferences where I pay so much money, and then I'm just like, okay, so how do I do it? Like, I'm inspired, but I need to know how to do it, friends. So I was very intentional, training my speakers up front, listening to their talks before they even got to Masterclass to make sure that they had 3 to 5 tangible takeaways that an attendee could take away from their session. So getting into speaking was my topic. We had a session on starting a travel business, so if you want to make money off of travel. We had a session on event production and planning, a session on getting into like coaching and consulting, building your business on purpose. So those were some of them. A session on like finding your brand voice, building your online community, and then like 5 other sessions very similar to that. Again, the whole goal was around branding and business building. So 2020, very similar, same goal, same tangible takeaways, 12 speakers, 75-minute classes that focus on those things too. Some of the things that we are booking for right now is Mommy and Me. So as a mompreneur, how do you build your business with children? SEO, so how do you build out search engine optimization so that when people search certain keywords, your business and brand pops up, and different things along those lines. So we did a survey of 2019 to really think through what did the attendees feel like they were missing, and so really taking all of that information and building it into Masterclass 2020.
I think that's fantastic because I think you bring up a good point. There's so many talks, so many symposiums, and yes, you hear people's stories and how they got into something, but then not how to apply it to one's life or to yourself. I was on your website and for your vlog and your blog, and you're pretty candid about stuff, saying, hey, if this is your 10 years of speaking, you should be charging this amount of money.
Exactly.
If it's that. I mean, have you always felt just, hey, I'm just going to be honest, I'm just going to put it out there because this is what's needed?
Totally. Again, I think the biggest thing is we're inspired. So for the most part, like I say that loosely, but for the most part, like the people that I meet who want to build brands and want to start businesses, we're inspired. What makes us less inspired is if we continue to like do the research or like feel like we're hitting a wall and we don't get the how-tos, then our inspiration is then like demoted, you know, and then we no longer feel inspired. So for me, I'm like, if this was my experience and then talking through other people, I'm like, this is their experience, then why aren't we just talking about how we do it? You know, I think we get so scared where we're like, no, I have to like keep the information because if I share it, then I'm not going to be differentiated or my competitive advantage is no longer competitive. It's like no one can do you like you. So share the information and then you can help someone along the way. So that's always been my mentality. And sometimes my husband says I share too much. But I think it's important for people to also know that like I am a human. Again, I think people realize in 2 years, like you've done all this amazingness. And it's like, I've done it because like I have failed, because like I've heard no, but when I heard no, when I failed, I just got back up. And like, I didn't always get back up instantly. And like, you should know those moments too, because I am human, I'm not superhuman. I've cried, I've yelled, I've screamed, I've prayed, I've had these human emotions. It's important for you to see my journey so that you know that you can do this too.
Right, and not just the end product, because I think too, so much in this business, I mean, there are the day-to-day challenges that happen. If somebody wants to lowball your speaking engagement fee, how you handled that, you know, or if someone says, nope, this isn't, but how you overcame something. And that's what gets taught to somebody else, and it's great that you're sharing that. I know that you are focusing a lot, as you mentioned, on the Masterclass, but I kind of want to go back to heyFRIEND, to your book for a bit. I thought it was really neat how you talk about, you sort of break the book down in connections, just different connections that you have made. But maybe talk about just some of the tips. I know that you work with helping introverts network, but just sort of tips to make that distinction between friend working, as you call it, versus networking, and maybe just a few of them just to share with people who might be watching this who haven't read the book.
Most definitely. Again, like I said earlier, everything that I've done, so whether it's Masterclass, I'm doing some spin-off events of Masterclass called Masterminds, the book, writing the book, speaking, all of that was a result of relationships. So even though like I'm pivoting a little bit and focusing on speaking, relationships will never go away from me because those are the things that made everything that I'm doing possible. And not that you connect for the sake of getting something from people, you connect for the sake of getting to know who people are, hearing their stories, figuring out what commonalities you have, and then how you can add value to each other's lives. That's the difference between connecting and networking. For me, networking feels very transactional. It's just like, here's my business card. If you ever need someone to change your oil, I don't know why that came up because I just had a flat tire. Change your tire, then call me. Versus, here's my card, like here's my, or don't even get, to be honest, I don't even carry business cards. Like don't even give me a card because it's gonna be washed in my jean pocket. But just being like, this is my story, like what's your story? OMG, like we both love the color purple. Oh my gosh, I love froyo too, you know? And then like, by the way, I change tires. So the next time I wanna get my tire changed, I'm gonna think about my favorite friend who loves purple and froyo versus someone who just gave me their card and I know nothing about them. So friend working for me is hearing the person's story first, figuring out who they are as people first, letting it not be transactional but relational, and then if you can do business together in the end, that's even more beautiful. But the connection should not start with what can we get from each other. It should start with how can we get to know each other. So my tips are always centered around find the spaces that make you comfortable. As an introvert, I think we often say, introverts don't like to meet people, and that's just not true. They like to meet people in spaces that make them comfortable, and to be honest, extroverts do too. Like, I go into networking events and I'm just like,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm like a crazy extrovert, but it just feels weird going into them, and I think we just have to name that it feels weird for everyone. So find your comfort level, whether that's you blogging and doing things that are proactive, creating content that brings people to you so that you don't have to like go to these weird networking events, or whether that's you going to your favorite coffee shop and sitting down and talking to someone that's new or something like that. So find the spaces that make you comfortable.
That's great. And I hate to say it because I knew you could give like 10 tips, so we're at the very end of the show, and I know I asked you for a few, and here I am, you know, ending it early for you. But that's why we're then going to plug the book, which is you have to then go buy the book or read the book. So we're going to put that information there for you on the site. But head to Keisha's website. It's really an awesome website. It's got links to her blog, to purchasing the book, her social media handles and accounts. It's all there, and her story. I think links to your TED Talk, so you can watch the full 15 plus minutes. But just you have such an interesting story, and I think what really stands out is just your just the ability to just say, this is who I am, and this is how what I've learned can benefit other people. And I really appreciate you coming here today to share that. So thank you
for
so
having
much.
me.
Thank
I appreciate it.
And thank you at home for watching, and please keep it right here on STL TV, Experience St. Louis.